Welcome everyone to the four pillars of successful nonprofit leadership. This is a webinar provided by Dennis C. Miller, founder and chairman of DCM Associates. Dennis is a nationally recognized strategic leadership coach and executive search consultant with more than 35 years of experience working with nonprofit board leadership. He is a sought after search consultant, leadership consultant, and speaker and author with a national audience. So I'd like to turn it over to Dennis and welcome you all to this webinar.
Thank you, Michelle, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. And I also wanted to thank you for what you do for everybody around our country and the world about impacting other people's lives in a positive manner. As some of you know, as Michelle indicated, so for the past 18 years, I been a board and leadership, executive leadership coach, strategist, mentor, and executive search firm. But before I started my journey some 18 years ago, and Michelle was with me almost from the beginning, I had a 25-year career in the medical healthcare world. I was the CEO of two major medical centers. One at the age of 38, believe it or not. I look back and wonder, what did I know when I was 38? But I guess I knew enough. I learned quite a bit in the past 30 plus years. But this whole concept of the four pillars really began one night at dinner with a colleague of mine who I had recruited to work at our medical center. And we had a dinner to talk about what we thought were the characteristics or the pillars of people that were successful in the nonprofit space, whether it be a nonprofit organization that all of you deal with. It could have been a medical center, it could be a university. And I came up with the four pillars, which became my first book. Now, we'll talk about later today too about, as best we can with a large crowd, taking some questions about, what would you think of the four pillars, and is there a fifth and sixth pillar? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Also, today's webinar is a kind of an overview, not only the concept of the four pillars, but an overview of a certificate program that we're launching for September. It's a 7-part series that'll be both live and recorded. And it's about transformational nonprofit leadership, and with 6 experts around the country, I'll be doing the first and last sessions, and other people will be doing the interim. So want to kind of get started here. So the 4 pillars that I came up with: relationship building, passion, communication, visionary thinking, and being business minded. Now remember, this book was written 15 years ago. Yet when I reread it or went through it recently to put together the presentation, I realized though how relevant it is, more relevant today than ever before, and yet so simple, and yet wondering how so many people just don't follow it. So I want to cover it up here today. Okay. So I just ask you out loud. I'm not expecting answers right now, but what makes the winning organizations, what makes them so effective? What is it? In my experience, winning organizations are there because of the people. It's people that make an organization winning and successful. I do believe it's very important, obviously, for an organization, for a leader to have a strategic vision. And it's really important for you to believe in its possibility. And allow everybody else to feel it's possible to achieve your vision. We'll talk about that in a second. But we all know that everybody, this whole thing about cultural resignation and difficulty recruiting staff and retaining staff and developing staff. You do know that, and I'm assuming you feel that way. I'm sure you do, that everybody wants to be associated with organizations that have a track record of success and a culture of success, and becomes, what is that? And today we'll talk about what that is and why the 4 pillars are important to create that here. So pillar 1 is relationship building. I never forget when I wrote the book. And the first statement here, I wish I could say I created this, but obviously Maya Angelou did it, and I've never in my life seen a better statement ever that meant as much to me as this does. I live by the golden rule. I treat people the way I would be treated. So it's like, yes, people will forget what you said, and they're going to forget what you did, but they're never going to forget how you made them feel. And that is as important today as it was yesterday and ever be. And that has been my motto in life. And I believe good leaders make people feel that they've been heard, that their voices matter, that their actions matter, their concerns matter. When people in an organization feel heard, when they feel heard and cared for and feel like someone's listening, the chances that you will retain that person are extremely high. It's when you have situations when people feel not heard, not respected, not cared for, and on top of that, no advancement, then that's a problem here. So the question to ask all of you and is just, what are the most effective organizations that you know? It could be your own. What organizations do you know are effective, and how would you describe those organizations? How would you describe the relationship that they have with their stakeholders? And how would members of your team describe the relationship they have with you? Now, I remember when I wrote this book, and I said a lot of people are going to poo-poo this as like emotional stuff, but I'm sure, I hope you agree with me that I've learned over the course of my life. And I joke about it, but I know that my IQ is not that high, and I know that because I can't do well in Jeopardy playing against my rival as it's sports or U.S. cities. But I've learned over time to have a high level of emotional intelligence, EQ. And I find that relationship building is all about EQ. And I remember having a professor in grad school that talked about, getting to know your people, your staff, and making them feel that they've been heard. And that's really important here. So a couple of decisions for you, which is this. Ask yourself, I don't know, how do you make people feel? How well do you listen to them? And here's a question that again, because of the size of the crowd, I'm not going to be able to take live questions right now, but it's, how do you establish credibility? When you think about this, like, how do you feel you establish credibility? And from my experience, one, in any capacity, but in leadership capacity, establishes credibility by consistently making decisions in the best interest of the organization. When people see that you're not making decisions in your personal interest. You can't demand trust and respect. You earn trust and respect, and you earn it by giving trust and respect. I've learned, I'm sure you have too, a long time ago, that walking around your organization and telling people that you're the CEO, executive director, you're chief of this or department head of that, sort of formal authority gets you so far, it's your informal authority. So it's how you earn trust and respect. And one of the ways that I know that, there we go, that I learned to trust and respect back in my medical center days was I followed through on my promises. And that's important. And so if you make a promise, you need to keep your promise. However, there are times when you make a promise, whatever it might be, and circumstances, environmental changes happen, you need to just own up to it and let people know that. The question about to be seen or not to be seen, again, I'll never forget the same thing, that professor I had. And again, I don't do work in hospitals anymore. I spent 25 years of my life in the medical center world, either as an executive or as a consultant. But I do remember him teaching us to walk around the hospital, particularly go down to the emergency room, see what the hospital is like. And I never forget walking around the hospital, asking people how they're doing. And I realized afterwards how it generated a lot of anxiety. Oh my God, the big guy, Mr. Miller, is here. Oh my God, what did we do wrong? And then I would ask them how they're doing, and they'd be nervous. And I'd go on another floor, and another phone call would come up. He's on his way to 3 West or something like that, and it's like, until they realized that I just wasn't seeing how they're doing. And I remember sitting down one day as I did oftentimes in the cafeteria, just ask people, you mind if I sit down with you? And I remember a woman said, Mr. Miller, I work for this other medical center for 10 years. I've never even met the CEO. So I just think the first pillar of relationship is so simple. It's relationship building and how you are seen, how you are viewed, perceived, both internally in your organization and externally in your organization, and how you build a relationship is vital. And if you want to be a winning organization, you're going to have to be able to build relationships with people. And finally here, you're the boss. Boss has to make decisions. I don't know about you, I worked for a gentleman once that he had to have a committee before he could decide anything, and that's not really effective here. And also, don't be a procrastinator. So I just wanted to touch base, and again, this is in the full course we're offering in the fall on the certificate program, we're going to go into this in a lot of depth, but I wanted to just kind of cover for now the first pillar of relationship building. The second pillar to me is everybody has this passion, but it's more than passion. It's passion and communication of who you are. So I want you to think for a second. Imagine having a board meeting that goes something like this. All right, good evening, everybody. I want to call the meeting to order. Thank you very much for being here. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from our last May meeting, June meeting? All in favor, say aye. Do I have a second? And the first item on the agenda today is we're going to talk about why we exist. Could you imagine that? So I'm sure all of you have seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, James Stewart. It's both a great movie and a depressing movie. But in that movie, if you recall, James Stewart had to go through a point where he was, highly regarded, and then he kind of, wanted to jump off the bridge and was not doing well. And then obviously his guardian angel came along and obviously made him see his life and how important his life was. So the question for all of us here and all of you is, when is the last time you really examined your mission? And when was the last time you had a discussion about if your organization didn't exist, what would happen? I'll never forget this. This is a true story. I'm not going to say which organization, obviously. But this was many years ago, and my facilitating a strategic vision retreat for an organization. And I asked the CEO in the board meeting, what would happen if your organization didn't exist? And this was a very prominent organization. I'm not even described, but it certainly dealt with children and young men. And I was waiting for this gentleman to say there'd be major impacted and what we do and the kids' lives and blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, nothing would happen if we didn't exist. Someone else would just do what we do. And I'm like, I gotta be kidding me. Those are some questions here. And so the question really is also about passion, and the pillar is about what's the impact you're having in the community on those you serve, and can you articulate that impact? It's a very important part of this pillar here. So when's the last time you re-examine why you exist? We're going to get to vision next, but when's the last time you really examine what you do? And sometimes what happens in our collective communities, our mission can we get mission creep, because sometimes we apply for grants because there's a grant, and then when the grant ends up, we keep the program, but it's not related to our mission, and we lose money. But I think it's sometimes important just every once in a while to think about why do we and why do you exist as an organization? So here's some things to think about. Yes, re-examine your mission. What's your purpose? But here's something that's I want to talk about in this pillar, which is how well do you and your colleagues do in communicating the achievements in your organization? How well do you do in your board meetings, in your management meetings, where you're in the community and having a chance to speak about who you are and what you do? How well do you speak about your achievements? I facilitated a retreat last week, we'll go nameless, on the East Coast. Flew back from my West Coast location. And people had a difficult time, Ben, about talking about achievements. And so I remember this story, I'll never forget it, never forget the story. I was asked when I first began my company, because I had a reputation in the medical center world of raising a lot of money, which I did, just intuitively. I didn't learn it, just did it, and it worked out well. So a group that dealt with domestic violence and sexual assault asked me if I could facilitate a workshop retreat on fundraising. I said, fine. And I didn't know anybody on the board. I think there was one gentleman who worked for one of my board members. That's probably how I got there. And I remember literally starting the meeting off, and I remember starting it off beforehand in preparation for the retreat or the workshop. You just want philanthropy. You don't want about leadership, governance, no, just fun. I said, okay. And I literally went in there and I asked them the question about, could they tell me why they existed? And there was a massive stare, and it was like, what's that got to do with anything? And I'll never forget, I asked them, could you tell me, anybody, tell me your top 2 achievements this past year? It was dead silence. A woman spoke up and said, we did our budget on time. And I think she was the board chair. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. But I kept a smile on my face. And then I went, and another woman said, Dennis, I hope they call me Dennis versus Mr. Miller, but I always joke with people when I was in my 30s and 40s and people called me Mr. Miller, I was flattered. When I got to be 60 and 70, I prefer being called Dennis. But I was stunned that they couldn't describe an achievement until a woman in the back of the room said, Dennis, we do a program called PALS, P-A-L-S. I said, what does that stand for? She says, it stands for Peace, an alternative learning system. He said, we treat children here who've been subjected to sexual assault, domestic violence, so they can have healthy relationships again with parents, surrogate parents, foster parents, teachers, classmates, etc. And I'm thinking to myself, grand slam home run in the bottom 9th inning, World Series winner. How do you communicate that phenomenal achievement? Because we're starting to do a better job internally, but not a good job externally. I remember telling them if you did a better job externally, that's why you raise money. So as part of the second pillar, it's important to communicate your achievements and your impact. Now, you all know for years, funders, foundations were asking you for outcome measures. And I think that some of it's certainly appropriate. I think they largely began asking for outcomes for you because they had no money to give you. So it was like no funding, but outcomes that they wanted. And I understood the connection they tried to make, but I think it's really, really important today for you at that board meeting, when you start off and say, today we're going to talk about why we exist, but how about today we're going to talk about what is our value to the community? How are we perceived in our community? What's the impact we're having on people's lives? And do you tell that story when people go onto your website, in your communications, in your social media? I created the term, the nonprofit stock price. And I created that obviously a long time ago, and then when I wrote this first book. And the joke I always have, if Mrs. Fritz, my 7th grade English teacher from Abraham Lincoln School in New Jersey, knew I wrote 2 sentences together, she'd have a heart attack because I wasn't a really good student back then. And the fact that I've written 5 books is a little amazing, but with help from Michelle. But I used to ask people, ask me, how's the stock price of the medical center doing? I said, good. Today was good, and tomorrow was good, and then something happened in the newspaper, whatever. So I always joke with people and say, how's your stock price? Let's go back here. Oops. How's your stock price? And so stock price is when you have a really good gala and people enjoy themselves. You have a good board meeting, they enjoy themselves. You have a good meeting, they enjoy themselves. You communicate well to your friends and colleagues, it goes up. Clearly, if you had illegal activities, fraudulent activities, bank fraud, embezzlement goes down. So I joke around, but it's serious. So about stock price. So it's all about, yes, passion for your mission and what you're trying to achieve, but it's really important as a pillar of leadership to focus about impact and communication and achievement, things like that. Okay, so that's the first 2 pillars. The third pillar is vision. As you all know, and I know you know, we just went over mission answers the question, why do I exist? What's our purpose? That's our mission statement. It's right, simple. 99.99% of people in Oregon get it. The challenge people have, though, when you ask them what their vision is, I would tell you this from my experience of many years, that is the simplest question to ask. It is the simplest question to ask and the most difficult to answer, because we're all caught up in today in fighting alligators around our ankles or calves. Vision answers the question, where are you headed? What's your future direction? And it should be, and I love Burt Nanas, and he's an excellent writer and an expert in visionary leadership that I've quoted a lot, hopefully not plagiarized, but quoted a lot from Burt. And my definition, his definition of a vision is a realistic, credible, attractive future for your organization that doesn't currently exist. If your vision statement says something about we want to make sure everybody has food or everybody has this, and you're already doing it, it's not a vision. That just describes your mission. It should be an articulation towards which you should aim a future, I said this in many ways, is better, more desirable than the present. And I'll also say to you this, I believe a vision statement should be 10 words or less, not 3 paragraphs, not a whole paragraph. And so a couple of things on vision, and this is really vital in terms of leaders today, and that's why it was one of the pillars. Leaders today are able to articulate their vision for their organization, their board, and their community. They're not waiting for the board to set the vision, where it used to be that way. It's not that way anymore. It should not be that way anymore. They look for you. And I know from the search world, we do tons of searches every day. And what we get all the time from board members is they want, an innovative, strategic thinker, visionary. Who can see our future? Who can see how better we can become? That's what everybody's seeking for. Okay, now. So these are some questions for you to think about. Is what is your organization's vision? And I'd be curious to find out from you, how many of your staff or board members, anybody, could even articulate what your vision is if you asked them? And the question becomes, do you or they passionately believe in your vision today? Was it set up 3 to 5 years ago? And is it stale, need of revitalization? I knew from my experience, having evaluated my prior 25 years before I started my company about leaders, that those people that were really, really good, and there are thousands of them in every community, people start organizations. I mean, I was fortunate to know the founder of Make-A-Wish. Fabulous story about a 8 or 9 year old boy, Kristen in Arizona had cancer and unfortunately, wanted to be a police officer and became an honorary Arizona State policeman with the uniform and Smokey the Bear hat and everything else. And when he passed away, his mom and the officer said, let's start a foundation for kids with wishes. But we have people every day making a difference in the community. It doesn't matter, when I taught classes about visionary thinking, everybody thinks about, Bill Gates, Jobs, Steve Jobs, and and Muhammad and Obama and everybody else. They're all fabulous visionary people, but you also are visionary people. And so, just a question from Mark to you: is your vision generating passion, excitement, and commitment? And if not, maybe it's time for you to redo that. And so, I also believe that vision should set standards of excellence, should inspire enthusiasm and encourage commitment and be well articulated and easily understood. But there's something that is very important for every vision statement. It must be measurable. You must be able to, whether it's quarterly, twice a year, annually, whatever you want to do, you have to be able to present a measure of how well you're doing towards your vision. If you can't measure it, if you can't figure that out, then there's no way of knowing if you achieved it or not. So if your vision statement is we want every child to be self-sufficient, I admire that, but I'm not sure that's really in the scope of your mission. I'm not sure that every child is going to be able to be self-sufficient from you. I'm not sure. And I see that, I know there's hands raised, but I'm going to try to, Michelle, if you're there and you can, read me the question. I'll do my best to try to answer the question if I can, because I don't have access to it right now.
Well, so far the only question I see is, can we get the slides on this to take notes, and I say, yes, I will
Okay.
definitely send the slides around with the recording.
Yeah, so everybody gets a recording of slides. Now, a couple things here. Want to go over a couple things. I'm not here to talk about much strategic planning, but vision. Is that I believe that you want to engage as many stakeholders as you can. I want you to focus in on the important issues and goals, not get caught up in minutia. I want you to keep the process simple. Get ideas, good ideas from everyone. Make sure everybody is heard. You want your plan and your vision to generate heartfelt emotions. I want everyone, when in my vision or your vision, when they walk into your organization, I want to plaster it everywhere. Entranceway, offices, board meetings, cafeteria, communications to employees, everything. I want everybody to understand our vision, because in spite of the alligators that we all have, and we all have them, it's vitally important that obviously we keep track of our ultimate goal. So we're trying to climb the top of the mountain, we fall down a little bit. Yes, we fall down, we got to get back up and keep going. Yeah, you want to assign responsibilities, action, time people, you want to hold people accountable and modify as necessary, and communicate to everybody. Don't keep it to yourself. Develop a couple of success factors of how you're going to measure success, and certainly update your plan accordingly. So if I look at the first three pillars already, it's one about relationship building, it's one about being passionate and yet communicative, and about visionary thinking. Let's go on to the fourth pillar, and then we're going to, Michelle will do the best we can to take questions that we can from the large audience here. Now, remember, I wrote this book 15 years ago. I still think all these pillars are relevant. I think relationship building is more relevant today than ever before. I think passion and being a good communicator is more important today than ever before. I think visionary thinking in light of today is fun, and business minded. So I, not officially claim it, I do believe I created the quote, nonprofit is your tax status, not your business plan. And I do know, and you know, that anytime an organization is constantly operating in the red and you know, negative operating margin, it's very difficult to focus on the things ahead of you. So it's very difficult. So I always tell people a couple of things here. And I'm going to get the break. So discussion purposes. Now, I grew up working in a large Catholic medical center. And I started as a senior vice president, finance and everything else, until I became executive vice president, then CEO. And I was drilled about mission. And I told the sisters, sister, I get it. I got all about mission. But I said, but if there's no margin, there's no mission. If this place continues to lose millions of dollars, you're going to go out of business. One of the things we all need to focus in on is, and it separates the winners from the losers, is growing the top line. I've seen too many people try to cut their way to success, and you can only go so far. I also think it's important to think about this, and we'll get to other pillars here. And in the session, the course we're going to have in September, it's going to elaborate quite a lot into the world of philanthropy as well, about the pillars. But think about seeking investors, not just funders. Think about people in your community, but also families, individuals that have the means to, or corporations and businesses that would like to invest in one of your programs. So let's assume, I'm just making up here, you have a program in Milwaukee or Los Angeles, Chicago, or Miami, anywhere, and you have your children's program. And ABC finds out that it costs you, $50,000 a year to support your, that's your budget. I'm just making it up. Then obviously, what if they would give you a gift of $250,000 over 5 years and have their name on that children's program, the ABC children's program? Well, now what happens is that your operating budget just got better, and that money freed you up for other things. And there's a ton of companies and businesses and even people that want to put their names on programs and services to support them. And I know that was my prior experience here. One of the big aspects of being business-minded in the nonprofit space is the issue of again, responsibility and accountability. Again, this was my experience when I first started, was there was often accountability and responsibility in the corporate world. But because people were either short-staffed in the nonprofit world, they kind of stuck around with people that were poor performance, even though they impacted morale in a negative way, and deal with it. And I think it's important to deal with people and hold people accountable. I think it's also very important to reward and incentivize people. And I think that's very important here. And it's certainly very important to talk about developing people's potential and certainly being concerned about mental well-being. We'll come back to that. But these are some of the questions here. Is how do you reward and recognize your employees today? Now, yes, the traditional way we've always done is give people a raise. And I don't know anybody that doesn't want a raise. But it's not always possible these days. So how do you reward and recognize people? From my experience, the best way to reward and recognize someone is to publicly, in front of their colleagues or peers, is to publicly tell them how wonderful you think they're doing and thank them publicly. There's no better way than that. I'll never forget, again, I've got 18 years of experience with our firm and hundreds of clients, but I go back to some of the stuff here. I remember back in my medical center days, we had an employee of the month program that there was a suggestion box outside the cafeteria, if I recall. And I think when HR opened the suggestion box weekly or daily to get names out of it, I think most times it was nothing but cupcake wrappers. I don't think it was many names, and it became a joke. And I was about to discontinue it when I realized that, no, I said, let's form a group of employees, let them create an employee of the month. And they did. I just said to HR, before we recognize someone as the employee for January, December, whatever month, just make sure they're not being, about to being fired either. So, but we had, they started nominating people from employee of the month, and it was very successful. But it was interesting is that one of our board members was an owner of a very successful major league farm team, baseball team. Right now, it's a AA team for the New York Yankees. I don't know how many Yankee fans out there, probably few or not, I don't know. And what we were able to do is that we had the team shirt with your name and number of 1 if it was January and 12 was December. And I always talked to the managers and the medical center back then about the board, and I realized oftentimes they didn't know what I meant when I said the board. So I said, let's invite the board to to one of our management meetings. So our board meetings used to be at 7 a.m. in the morning, so we got people out on time. And one day, literally, we had about 200 people that are in our management team, about every level, invited to our auditorium, and had the board members come in. 18 would sit up in front, and they would introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Tom Jones. I'm the chair of cardiology. I'm also the chair of the finance committee, whatever. And people saw them, and it was amazing. But I'll never forget, that day was the day we gave out the Employee of the Year. And when the employees nominated someone, and they nominated someone, and I don't remember who it was that won Employee of the Year, but went home with that award. The excitement they had going home to tell their family and kids and spouses and partners that I was so proud to be part of that. So part of being business-minded is, yes, growing your revenue and maintaining as best you can a positive operating margin, but it's how to reward and praise your team here. A little bit beyond the scope of today's session, though, I believe it is vital about having a leadership development program, and that's going to be discussed in our certificate program. But I want to say this. Every one of you, in some capacity, has a strategic plan, whether it's current, stale, but you have a plan. every one of you has some form of operating budget and financial statements, and they have that. But, you know, again, because of the hundreds of people involved here right now, I'm not going to ask the question, but how many of you have a leadership development program? And this is what I mean by that. Let's assume whether you've got 200 people in your organization, 1,000 people in your organization, or 50 people in your organization. You have a table of organization, whether it's the CEO, people report to the CEO, people report to that person, all the way down to your weekend coordinators and weekend outreach people and any coordinator, supervisors, directors, assistant directors, and all that stuff. Take their, and on that box, in that position, regardless of who's in it, ask yourself and your team, if that position was vacant, what would be the ideal competencies, which is what you learn on the job, like leadership, change agent, innovator, thinker, brand builder, collaborator. What are the skills? What's the experience and or education or certification you would need for that? You can develop then a program for everybody in your organization, or also what a lot of people recommend is they just recommend the top 20% of high performers, and you have an annual evaluation. And one of the ways you reward them is you develop a leadership development program, okay? And that, and now you've identified the skills and competencies, what you need to have inside your organization. And you provide training with your own staff and your own mentors or coaches, and you rely upon outside experts when you can. You rely upon us, our courses, our sessions, and et cetera, et cetera. One of the things you want to do that every time a position opens up, and when I say leadership, I don't mean executive, I mean management is leadership to me, same thing. Is the more you can promote from within, the better off you are, and how many you can. You're constantly putting ads in Indeed or hotjobs.com, all the other things that I don't know anything about. The more you can develop your own people, the better off you are, and it's like very inexpensive to do. So we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. So those, in my opinion, are the 4 pillars: is relationship building, passion for your mission, but great communicators, visionary thinking, and business-minded people. Now, a couple of closing thoughts, and we'll take up a few things here. My whole life is about trying to empower other people to lead your organization and sort of have with a new mindset. Many of you may know my personal life story, which I'm not going to get into right now, about Mom was the CEO. I went from being hopeless and failure in a massive way to being happy and successful. I do believe that everybody has potential to become a good leader. Now, I do think there are some people who are born leaders. They got genetics. I don't know where they got it from. It didn't come in my family. But I do believe that everybody can become a better leader and lead your organization to new heights. I believe the fun in life is accepting challenges with a good attitude, positive attitude, and working around with everybody towards achieving a common goal. Stop crying and complaining about what is and what's the problem versus seeing it as a challenge here. As I like to say, don't let the alligators bite your knees. Make sure they stay below your ankles or calves. And also be proud of your success on every occasion, once in a while, reminding people why you are successful here. Now, those are the 4 pillars. I want to just briefly talk about something that we're having and coming up on. This September, we're starting a certificate program in transformational nonprofit leadership. It's going to be an incredible program over 7 sessions, starting in September, ending in early December. The sessions each of the 7 sessions have 2 parts. It's going to be a recorded part, so you can listen to the session at any time, day, evening, nights, weekends, on your mobile app, whatever. And then there's going to be a designated date and a time when there's going to be a live 90-minute interaction with a group of 25 or less. So there'll be multiple groups of 25 or less. So it's really interactive. And I would, if I think it's for both current leaders, those aspiring to be a leader, but I think it's if you are the CEO, it could be for you or a new executive director for you, but it's also a fabulous opportunity to reward and recognize someone on your team, and I'm going to tell you why. If you register by the end of this month, you can register in September, but by the end of this month, it's only $975, and it's going to be a couple of things. You'll see, you'll get all this. The 7 courses, an expanded version of today about the 4 pillars, about transformational leadership with Dr. Stiles, about finding your North Star with Gregory, learning from adversity from Jim McGurk, Jason Smith about the changing landscape in philanthropy, Dr. Terry Cahill, Think It Before You Act and Speak, a fabulous leadership coach around the country. And I'll be ending it with bringing it all together and the most recent last book I wrote called The Power of Strategic Alignment, How to Energize and Align Everybody Together. There's a little bit of a bios here. Now, what one will also get if one signs up for the course is you're going to get a free online course that has, it's called How to Become a High Performing Nonprofit Leadership Team, and you'll be giving a license for a year. This course is an hour long, but it's broken into 9 modules, 3 to 5, 8 or 10 minutes each about visionary thinking, how to become emotionally intelligent, the whole idea of becoming an entrepreneurial spirit, your role and the leader's role in philanthropy, being a brand builder, how to communicate your success. That stock price we talked about, how to be a collaborator, you don't do it by yourself, how to build your succession in your organization and being an inspirational motivator. So that's kind of where we are. And you are going to get, let's stop that here. And we're going to get this presentation in PowerPoint. And I want to start to see if we can, I see some questions here. So I'm going to go over one here. At my organization, pulling teeth to get people engaged in risk management. Listen, I think it's challenging for all of us is to wonder why, I don't see sometimes boards wanting to assess themselves and their own performance, even though they're volunteers. I don't see a CEO always evaluating his or her staff. I don't see the board evaluating their organization. I see a lot of things. So the question is if you got risk management issues here, you need to hold people accountable. But I always think it's important to start on the positive. So this is from Lori. Lori, I think it's to start the positive about why risk management is important to you. But I think it's vital to be engaging everybody, okay? Let's see here. The schedule for the Transformation Nonprofit Certificate, again, it's gonna start in September. I believe after Labor Day, you'll have access if you sign up to the first course. And I believe it's the 3rd week or so, I'll get the exact date in September. And it's gonna be during the work hour. So it'll be 10 o'clock on the West Coast and 1 o'clock on the East Coast. You don't wanna be rewarded with a program that you've gotta, do at home when your kids are asking for help with the homework or helping with dinner or whatever you got to do. So it's going to be during the day, probably every other Thursday, I believe it's going to be at that time, and it'll be groups of 25. But we'll be sending you more information about this. And again, $975, I think, is an incredible rate. We don't want to charge thousands of dollars. I don't think it's necessary. I think transformational leadership is where it's at today. I think it's not a course to teach you about how to do a budget. It's not about how to do things, but how to think differently and bring that to your plate here. I'm going to see if we can, if people can either type in another question and or take yourself off mute if you so can. And just ask me a question out loud if you don't mind, or if you're on the call and in the office with your boss and you have a question about your boss, you can say, I have a friend that has this issue if you want. But I see a lot of my friends here throughout this day here. I'm happy you're here, but I'd like to see if we can take some more questions. And here's a question for you now. Again, I wrote this book 16 years ago. 16 years ago. It came out 15 years ago. And the question is, I believe back then these were the 4 pillars, but I think there are more pillars these days. I think there are at least 2 more pillars. So my question to all of you, and you can think about it for yourself, but I'm curious as you would share what do you think will be another pillar of important leadership characteristics today? Anybody want to take a crack at that? Anybody, if you can just take yourself off mute and raise your hand. I'm gonna see if I can call anybody. Jeannie, Yvonne, anybody, Ebony? You wanna take a crack at it, or anybody here? Just anybody want to take a shot at it? I think one of the pillars that is, it came a little bit with business minded, but it grown, is today more important than ever before is creating a culture of philanthropy. I think it's vital, and it's a whole different thing. And Jason's going to get into that in our certificate program, and we'll have another webinar probably soon about to teach everybody more successfully how to create a successful culture of philanthropy by talking about your achievements and the impact, and asking people to invest in your success versus giving to your needs. It's a whole different thing. And because most board members would rather stick pins in their eyes or have root canal to raise money, and I know that's true, so we can help you with that here. That's one thing. Well, Bill, I agree with you, Bill, about accountability and trustworthiness. I think that goes with it. That's built into my sense of a relationship pillar. I would add that to it, but I think, Bill, you're 100% right. And I think it's like I said, how do you establish credibility? You can't walk around and say, I'm Mr. Miller, I demand it. You got to walk around and you got to earn it. And so you earn credibility by, being accountable and trustworthy. I agree with that. And certainly relationship building. I also think a couple other pillars. I think today more than ever before, mental well-being is very important to be concerned about your mental well-being, everybody else's here. As many of you know, I did a TED talk back in April about which Michelle, maybe we can send it out to people as well in a separate email. And I think the other pillar I would add today is, and yes, I agree with Ali about, but relationship building, I already mentioned that, but if you might have come in late, but relationship building is important, is relationship building, passion, communication. You got to communicate today. I know most of us didn't go into the business because we want to tout our horn, but today you have to tout your horn. You can't just go around saying your organization is what you do, and even for how many you do, you got to talk about the impact you're having. And I would, and I'll never forget this. That same organization that we talked about what their achievements were. They were having a big gala, and I asked them once, did they have anybody that can tell their story? And I remember at the beginning, they said, this is highly confidential. I said, I get it. Domestic violence is hard. It's horrible. I get it. But they said, I think this one woman may want to tell a story. So wonderful. Could we meet her? So we met her, I'm telling you, 5 minutes at most. A tiny bit of coaching, and she got up at the gala and told her story, which was heartbreaking, about what happened to her husband and her kids, but the kids survived. And she talked about how grateful she was for the organization. I won't go into the details right now. It's in one of my books, or all my books or something. It's in this book, I think, but it's important to have us talk about our lives. And so, but I would say relationship building is number one. You cannot hire someone to build a relationship with you. You can hire someone to build your vision. You can hire someone to communicate for you, perhaps. You can't relationship build. You can have someone do it for you. You really can't have someone else set your vision. Yeah, it's got to come from you. Business minded, yes, but I think clearly philanthropy, a culture of philanthropy, I think leadership development, building your staff, I think is vital, is crucial here. And I'm also, know we just have a few minutes left here, so we'll see if anybody has any other questions, but I thank you for here. I would highly recommend, if you can, for either yourself or someone on your team that you want to reward and recognize, I think they will really learn a tremendous amount about leadership and transformational leadership. I think they're going to, or you will learn, I think, be passionate, excited, bring that back to you. We've got people signing up for 3 people and everything else like that. What we'll do is when you get from us the recording and the PowerPoint, if you have any particular questions, I would ask you to email back to me, and I will make arrangements to get back to you. This will probably go out, relatively soon. May go out this week. I don't want to speak for Michelle with her workload. I want to thank Michelle. Michelle's been with me from the get-go. The joke always is that Michelle's been helping me look good for 16, 17 years. And the joke is that she's been working with me for 25, but it's not really true, but Michelle's terrific. And again, I want to thank all of you for what you do, helping so many people rely upon you and your service and your leadership. And I thank you all very much, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.